He thought he was untouchable, a man who controlled people for fun, who ruined lives without guilt. But one hidden drawer, one stack of photos, and his empire crumbled. This is how I brought my boss to his knees. I wasn't a man chasing after power. All I wanted was a stable life, a good career, and a future with the woman I loved. My name is Amar, and a few years ago, I was working as a supervisor at a large production facility. Life at the factory was predictable. The hum of machines, the sharp smell of metal and oil, the occasional shouting of foremen when deadlines got tight. For most people, this was just a job. For me, it was a stepping stone. I had responsibilities. But I also had something much more important than work. Her name was Sarah. Sarah worked at another branch office, miles away. It was a long-distance relationship, and though the travel was exhausting, every visit was worth it. She was radiant, intelligent, fearless, and kind. Her laugh had a way of cutting through the stress of my week. We would spend long evenings on video calls, planning little pieces of our future. What kind of house we wanted, how many kids, where we'd travel once we had saved enough. But where there is light, shadows always lurk. The shadow in my life came in the form of my boss, Malik Rayhan. Rayhan was everything I wasn't. Loud, dominating, manipulative. The kind of man who thrived on control. If you walked into a room, you noticed him. He dressed sharply, spoke confidently, and carried himself like he owned the place. For years, he had worked his way into upper management, not just because of his skills, but because of his ruthlessness. He always knew how to play the game, and more importantly, how to crush anyone who got in his way. On the surface, Rayhan had the picture-perfect life. A beautiful wife named Manor, who also worked in the company, friends in high positions, and financial security. But underneath, he was a monster. He was notorious for cheating on his wife, bragging about his affairs, and even more disturbingly, documenting them. Yes, photography was his hobby, but not the kind you'd expect. He didn't shoot landscapes, portraits, or art. He photographed his conquests. Intimate, shameless photos of himself with women who thought they could trust him. And then he'd brag about it, sometimes showing a select few people just enough to make them uncomfortable without ever giving them the courage to speak out. People hated him, but they also feared him. And then, fate brought him across Sarah's path. It started innocently enough. Rayhan had to visit Sarah's branch for a work trip. She told me about it casually, not knowing that storm clouds were about to gather. When he met her, he turned on his infamous charm. Expensive gifts, fake compliments, little manipulative comments to wear her down. He wanted her, and in Rayhan's world, no wasn't an option. But Sarah wasn't like the others. When he finally made his move, cornering her during a late meeting and suggesting they spend some time together, she stood her ground. "No," she said firmly, her voice steady. "I have a boyfriend. I'm not that kind of woman." Rayhan's smile faltered. For a moment, the mask slipped, and Sarah saw the anger flash across his face. "You'll regret this," he muttered before walking away. She told me everything that night, her voice trembling. I held the phone, my knuckles white with rage, wishing I could reach through the screen and tear him apart. I tried to calm her. "Don't worry, Sarah. He can't do anything." But I was wrong. The next week, Sarah was called into HR. She was accused of performance issues, of not meeting expectations, of inappropriate behavior, lies, all of it. And just like that, she was fired. We appealed, but nothing worked. Rayhan's influence was everywhere. Sarah was devastated. She cried on the phone, blaming herself even though she had done nothing wrong. I tried to be strong for her, but inside, I felt powerless. That's when something inside me snapped. I realized that if I wanted justice, I couldn't wait for the system to save us. I had to take matters into my own hands. And so, the seeds of revenge were planted. After Sarah lost her job, I spent weeks drowning in anger. Every night, I replayed her trembling voice telling me how Rayhan cornered her. Every morning, I walked into the factory and saw his smug smile. He didn't just fire her. He wanted to humiliate me too, because he knew she was my fiancée. I tried to stay quiet, but I started noticing things. His arrogance wasn't just in the way he talked. He had a routine. Every morning, he arrived at the office at exactly 9:15. He drank his tea in silence for 10 minutes, then locked himself inside his cabin until noon. After lunch, he disappeared for meetings, which usually meant flirting with junior staff. But the real discovery happened by accident. One evening, I was working late, and Rayhan had already left. I had to drop some files in his office. As I placed them on his desk, I noticed the bottom drawer didn't shut properly. Out of curiosity, I tugged at it, but it wouldn't open fully. Something inside was blocking it. My heart raced. I knew Rayhan well enough to know he wasn't careless. If a drawer was half stuck, it wasn't an accident. Over the next week, I tested it again. Same thing. And then one day, I noticed a tiny key taped under his desk. That's when I knew. Late at night, when the factory was quiet and most workers had left, I sneaked into his office. My hands shook as I used the key. The drawer clicked open. Inside were stacks of envelopes. I opened one, and there it was, a photograph. Rayhan, shirtless, holding a woman close. Her face was visible, her eyes filled with shame and fear. Another photo showed him grinning, like he was proud of the conquest. I flipped through more. Different women, different nights, the same sick grin. It was his personal gallery of destruction. And then my breath caught, because among the photos, there was a picture of Sarah. Not intimate, not like the others. Just a shot of her sitting at her desk, unaware. But the way he had captured her, like prey, made my blood boil. I clutched the photo, rage flooding through me. He wanted her. He had ruined her career because she said no. And now, she was in this drawer among his trophies. That's when I made my decision. I wasn't just going to expose him. I was going to destroy him. Carefully, I took some of the photos. Enough to prove his guilt, but not so many that he'd notice right away. I slipped them into an envelope, sealed it, and placed it deep inside my bag. My pulse was racing so hard that I thought the security guard outside could hear it. But somehow, I walked out unnoticed. That night, as I sat in my room staring at the evidence, I realized this was my weapon, but I couldn't go to HR. They'd never believe me. Rayhan had too much power. No, I had to hit him where it hurt the most. His perfect little marriage. And so, I started planning the delivery of the envelope. The morning I mailed the package, the sky was gray and heavy, like it knew a storm was coming. I walked into the post office, heart pounding, and handed over the sealed brown envelope addressed to Mana Rayhan. Inside were carefully chosen photographs, undeniable proof of her husband's betrayals. No note, no explanation, just the truth, raw and unfiltered. For days I waited. Each moment dragged on endlessly. At work, Rayhan strutted around as usual, barking orders, laughing too loudly. He had no idea that the ground beneath him was about to collapse. Then it happened. It was a Tuesday morning. Rayhan arrived late. His face pale, his tie loosened. He slammed his office door shut without speaking to anyone. By lunchtime, whispers had spread across the factory. His wife found out. She left him. She took the kids. I pretended not to listen, but inside my heart was racing. At 3 p.m., Mana herself stormed into the building. She looked nothing like the quiet, polite woman we all knew. Her eyes were red, her hands shaking, but her voice was sharp as a knife. "Where is he?" she shouted. Rayhan came out of his office, trying to act calm. "Manor, please, let's not do this here." She slapped him across the face, so hard the sound echoed through the hall. "You filthy snake!" she screamed, throwing the photos at him. They scattered on the floor, sliding across the tiles. Workers gasped as they saw the images, undeniable, disgusting proof. Women he worked with, women he manipulated. His secrets laid bare in the open. Rayhan froze. His massive control shattered. "Manor, please." But she wasn't listening. She spat at his feet, turned and stormed out, her heels clicking like gunshots. Silence filled the factory. And then, like a dam breaking, the whispers turned into roars. Workers laughed, cursed him, pointed at the photos still lying on the floor. His reputation was shredded in seconds. That night, Rayhan didn't go home. He sat in his office alone, staring at the wall, his empire crumbling around him. And I went home and told Sarah everything. Her eyes filled with tears, not of sadness, but of relief. "You did this for me?" she whispered. "I did this for us," I replied. The weeks that followed were chaos. Rayhan's marriage was over. Manar filed for divorce, demanding full custody of their kids. She leaked more photos to senior management. The company could no longer protect him. Complaints from former employees surfaced, women who had been too afraid to speak until now. With the evidence out, their voices grew louder. Investigations began. Rayhan was suspended, then quietly fired. His name became a curse in the industry. No one wanted to be associated with him. I watched all of it unfold, silently, calmly. He had ruined so many lives, and now he was tasting his own medicine. But revenge wasn't just about destroying him. It was about rebuilding what he had tried to break. Sarah slowly healed. She found a new job, this time with a company that valued her talent. We saved money, and within a year, we stood together under a wedding canopy, promising to build a life free of shadows. Sometimes, late at night, I think about the look on Rayhan's face when Manur threw the photos at him. The shock, the fear, the sudden realization that he wasn't untouchable. That was the moment my revenge was complete. I didn't just take his job. I took his mask. I made the world see him for what he really was. And as I held Sarah's hand on our wedding day, I knew one thing for certain. Rayhan may have tried to destroy us, but in the end, he destroyed himself.